Hello, my friends and my fellow Harmonauts, and welcome to the Harmony Garage. I, of course, am Sam Harrison, your local mechanic, to bring you inside all things Harmony. And I'm excited for what we have for you today. There are a couple of things we did a little differently this week with our videos. Number one, the actual ecosystem updates that you'll see in just a minute. I had a guest. I had Sahil with me, and I asked him questions that I had received from the community, from you, our audience, to talk really a lot about what's been happening, what's been going on, which is great. So he does a great job of digging in and going through these things, and I think you'll really find it interesting. Then the next thing I have is an AMA with the co-founder and CEO of Quid. Now, you may know Quid from the Atari NFT drop about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. I don't know. I've lost all sense of time. It's been horrible. Most people lose their sense of smell or their sense of taste with COVID. I lost the concept of time. One day I'll get it back. Hopefully before I go totally gray. Am I right? Anyway, so it was a great conversation there with Michael. Now, we did have a bit of a technical problem. Zoom froze when we were talking with Michael. And so we had to dial back in and reset all that. Now, my staff, I don't have a staff, the volunteers, the wonderful people who edit and prepare this video to go live, Reddit moderators, are fantastic community managers. They will do their best to make me look pretty and make that look good. The fact that we had this technical problem, but at the end of the day, you'll probably still notice it. So my apologies. This is just one of the things that happens in this new day and age. Now, I did read a bunch of tweets and comments from this last week talking about how I did or how I didn't do in last week's update. Granted, last week was a little different, right? All I had was myself in front of everybody without a guest. And to that point, over on YouTube, user Eric Strabel said, "Thanks for making this one. I believe until you go live, you should think about interviewing someone like last week. It seems to spark more energy and insight and salsa dancing." He didn't say salsa dancing. Harmony One, hashtag to the stars. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it. And yes, you're right. Last week I was a little bit lower energy. It was just one of those days. I also didn't have swag. Maybe that was the problem, right? I had not yet received a whole lot of swag from our friends over at store.harmony.one. This shirt is among them. This is not a standard shirt. This is a community store shirt. So you can head over there and you can purchase all of the various different Harmony garb. Now, I don't have a promotion code because I don't get paid for this. But that's where I got all my stuff. So over the next several videos, you'll see a bunch of different things that I'm wearing that I all got at store.harmony.one. Now, I'm sorry for telling that story. I'm sorry for telling all those stories, particularly Bo Hunkins on YouTube said, "Bud, this ain't story time, mate." Sorry, Bo. You're right. It's not story time. I'm just trying to engage with you guys and have fun. So sorry. Now, Rob Dawson, of course, said, "Great video. I love the YouTube live idea. I shared this with my Facebook group of over 3,700 Harmonauts. I do too. It's not going to be for a couple of weeks before we get that YouTube live going. It will happen. We're also rolling out the podcast in probably about 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks. So things are moving along well, and I look forward to doing the YouTube live soon." Over on Reddit, our friends Crypto Millions, who has had some interesting comments so far, but good comments, good criticisms. He tells me to invest in a green screen. "I'm sure this gentleman," I think he's referring to me, "is a brilliant man and a valuable asset to the Harmony team. I'm just not convinced he's a PR guy. Who is Harmony trying to appeal to? It feels like Golden Girls meets old school news." I actually really like that. I'm a fan of Golden Girls, and I'm a fan of the old school news. I don't have a green screen because this is real. Watch, hang on. See, watch. As I stand up, that was so dumb. I really hope my team shows a lot better than that, because that was really stupid. But this is a real garage. This is not a fake garage. I can pull down that rowing machine. I can grab that keyboard from the shelf. This is what I live in. So sorry, crypto millions, green screen ain't happening. Got to come to the real Harmony Garage. And then finally over at Twitter, ex-Londoner says, keeping it real. I like this format. No BS. Thank you, ex-Londoner. I'm sorry you had to leave London. My guess is it's probably because you were searching for some better food. Great. Now I've just offended the entire population of London. But your food sucks. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my team to make the transition over to the conversation I had with Sahil, doing a bunch of Harmony updates. You guys, again, thank you. This is a great experience. I really enjoy reading the comments, reading the feedbacks. I want this to be better and stronger and more wonderful. I'm working really hard not to bang on my desk quite as much. And also my apologies. I think our videos today, I think I'm okay as far as pixelation and definition wise, but I think we had some poor connections. One of the reasons the Zoom ended with some of our interviewees. And so they are not going to look fantastic. You'll have to stare at my ugly mug in high def. Anyway, all the best to all of you. And you guys, this is good. Thank you. Hello, my friends and my fellow Harmonauts, and welcome to the Harmony Garage. I am Samuel Harrison, and I will be your mechanic today as you come in and get updates and tune-ups for what's going on in the Harmony ecosystem. Today, I am joined by Sahil Devan. He is a co-founder of Harmony, and he leads product as well as many different things. Prior to joining the Harmony project, he led the blockchain club at HBS, and he worked at the Draper Dragon Fund, investing in blockchain projects and crypto. Sahil, welcome to the garage.
Thank you, Sam. I'm glad to be your fellow mechanic today.
Indeed. Part of what's great about this experience is that we get to meet the core team a little bit more personally, a little bit more involved. We get to see their personality come out a little. You saw the interview that we had with Peter a couple weeks ago, which was great. We had a developer call earlier, which also went over really well. And so I just wanted to pause before we get into the updates and say, first off, thank you for all the work that you've been doing on this project. It's amazing. But also, what is it about blockchain, the potential of blockchain that you've seen, but you haven't quite realized yet? Like, what is something that you know this technology can do and you can't wait for it to become live?
Well, I think so. There's a lot of things. The funny part, Sam, is when I heard about this technology like 6 or 7 years ago, specifically Bitcoin, I was like, this is not going to make it. This is not possible. And, I at that time did envision a world where one global currency which would eliminate the borders would be fantastic. But I think we're getting there with Bitcoin. So that's good. Yeah. So that's really not in the category of something that hasn't happened. I think that's bound to happen, hopefully. Yeah. But something that hasn't happened, and I wish for it to happen in the next 5 years maybe, is around zero knowledge proofs and applications that drive it. Imagine us contributing, right now my phone has all my applications and all the data is with centralized gardens. Imagine, especially healthcare. Yeah. We talk about anti-aging. Can we get tremendous amount of data powered through blockchain with the right incentives to solve for so many of these human problems that we can't today because of how we're structured, how the world operates? So I think it's fascinating to see. And let's hope that happens.
I look forward to your future. That's a place that I definitely want to live. I think it'll be very interesting. Now, of course, we just want to do a really quick update before I get into an AMA. I'm having an AMA with the CEO of Quid, which is going to be great. We're going to be talking about some NFTs. We're going to be talking about some of the collaboration that we've been working on. But I wanted to give an opportunity for the community to ask you a few questions just specifically about Harmony products. So obviously, one of the big ones, one of the things that the developers are constantly asking for is the Explorer. Our Explorer is working. to put it mildly. But they are asking for a new version, one that has more features and more updates. Can you give us a heads up, a look under the hood, if you will, of this upcoming project?
So, incidentally, this is the project that I'm most excited about over the past 6 to 8 weeks. And hopefully, fingers crossed, in the next couple of weeks, we'll launch the Explorer V2, as we call it internally. And I think the effort there is, our first version of the Explorer was designed to make sure that, assets and staking transactions and all the data related to these was visible, was transparent. And then in the last 6 months, we've seen this boom of DeFi and NFTs.
Yeah.
And people are used to Etherscan, right? So our moving target then became Etherscan. And we were like, hey, we're an Ethereum compatible chain. It is possible for us to present all the data that you see on Etherscan on our Explorer. It is possible to verify contracts that you're engaging with on the Explorer itself, just like you do on Etherscan. So right now, our current Explorer, of course, does not have very clear or has broken experiences around smart contract transactions, transactions related to contract calls or internal contract transactions. When you go to Etherscan and you add liquidity or you're using a yield aggregator like YFI, on that transaction page, you see, how the money is moving, how these tokens are being moved across different protocols. That's exactly what we'll see on our Explorer as well. So that's going to be amazing. Yeah. NFT transactions are going to be there. So yeah, I think we're getting ready, and we're probably one of the first few layer 1 protocols which are making our Explorer ready for DeFi, NFTs, and the whole world of smart contract transactions.
That'll be very exciting. And I cannot pin you down on a release date, right? Like that's like software deployment and launch dates are not something that any developer, any product person wants to say.
Yeah, I have one thing I've had at Harmony is more empathy for our engineers. So I don't want to be announcing
all right.
until we're very sure. But I would say in the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
Oh, that's exciting. See, that knowledge I think is really great. And of course, we won't hold you to it. We'll hold RJ to that. We'll hold his feet to the fire.
You should hold me to it. I feel responsible for it.
Sure. So can you tell me a little bit about there is an issue upgrading Chromium. Are you aware of this? Can you tell me anything about if this is being resolved?
So there's been a patch already on the 1.1. Basically, the latest Chrome update broke a lot of these applications, and we saw that with Ledger as well. So we fixed it, and hopefully it should work also.
Okay.
And MetaMask experienced something similar. So in case anyone still has troubles, you know where to find us. Go to the Telegram group, and you'll get a response from us immediately.
Okay, excellent. Good to hear. Another thing that people are interested in is a lot of people really care about maintaining their own private keys off of a central device. And they use a variety of these various different devices that look like thumb drives effectively. But this is, for example, the Ledger Nano X. Now, I don't believe Harmony is yet compatible or you can store it on the Ledger X, but do you have any updates on this particular?
Yeah, I think this has been on our list for a while. So as you know, Ledger Nano S works for storing Harmony and for all the transactions. For Nano X, it's a different firmware, and we've already made the updates, and we're just working together with the Ledger team to push that update out. Hopefully, it should be no later than about 3 to 4 weeks. But something top of mind, and glad that you've given us another notification or a reminder to prioritize this and really push it out. So that's the only reason. There's no other technical reason left for us to push this out. So definitely hope that by July we should have this.
Excellent. Ready. Well, that's exciting. That's also, man, you're just giving me nothing but presents here, Sahil. It's just like little packages of joy after another. Now, here's a question that I know is sometimes really sensitive to talk about. A lot of the community, a lot of people in crypto in general really care a lot about getting listed on exchanges. There's a black box around how that works when is one exchange going to be listed? When are you going to be listed on a different one? Is there anything you can tell us about the exchange listing process that the community may not know that will help them understand why this isn't always just a stamped, signed, and ready deal from day one?
Right, absolutely. I think what I can share a light on is how this whole kind of process works and why this works the same a certain way, right? At the end of the day, exchanges take full responsibility, do entire due diligence on all the projects before listing them.
Mhm.
They want to make sure that these tokens are according to their regulatory guidelines in those territories wherever these exchanges are going to list these tokens and make it available to the community. And second, it's on the project's shoulder to have all the information openly available for not just exchanges but community. So I think what we usually as projects do is all the information starting from Block Explorer showing exactly the supply of the tokens and all the documents that talk about the architecture, the white paper, the security, the protocol design, all of that is made available openly. And you can find all of these documents available for Harmony yourself. And exchanges use these documents to have their own internal due diligence and review process and figure out based on whatever frameworks they use, and then list these tokens once. There's also exchanges also think a lot about demand. And is this project really finding users, finding developers, is being adopted? Are people externally engaging with this project? So I think there's so many different lines which the project just has to keep on building, and the exchange picks up these projects by themselves. Usually it does. It's not a process which happens in a couple of weeks. This process takes anywhere between, I would say, 3 to 6 months to get listed. And some exchanges nudge the project that, hey, we need this information from you. We're considering listing you, and we then provide information. So that's how the whole flow goes. And project can just wait and watch for the token to be listed on the exchange eventually.
Yeah. It's such a difficult thing because each exchange, almost every single exchange, is in a different jurisdiction. And so they'll end up having different regulatory requirements.
Right.
And on top of that, their backers and their risk profile, they'll also have different requirements that they have to match. And so when it gets down to it, the best that we can do is just keep building, because those thresholds could be not necessarily moving targets, but we could be doing great on target 1, 2, and 3. But target A, B, and C, we may need a little bit of work on. Right. So I guess the message to the community is, hey, these things we are a very popular chain. We have a popular token. Things are going very, very well for Harmony by and large. And all of the exchanges that you are looking at and you're curious about, they're probably also paying the same amount of attention as you are.
Exactly. So we only ask more developers to keep on building more on Harmony and more of community to use these applications. And hopefully our token should be available to everyone around the world, listed on all the top exchanges.
Excellent. So rapid fire really quickly. We only have a moment or two left before I want to hop into the AMA with Quid. But can you give us just some general updates? The Crazy Ones is doing great. What's the latest on the one names? I know a lot of people are asking about bridges and bridge building. I don't know what the current status is there. And then also there's a question about stable coins. I know we have some that are wrapped and bridged, but what's kind of any quick, really fast updates on any of those topics?
Wow, that's the entire product roadmap, Sam. Thanks for asking that question.
Okay, let's boil down your next 9 months of work into 3 sentences.
Yes, I will try and do it in 60 seconds, 20 seconds. So I think the one names is the ENS. The application is already running on Harmony. We're just waiting to complete the integration of one wallet for it to work. It's a Web3 application. MetaMask works. So as soon as that's done, it'll be out. People can create their own names. So Sam.1, which will be a pretty, more expensive than Sahil.1.
Yeah.
And Sam and Sahil can send any Harmony assets to each other by just typing Sam.1 on the one wallet. So that's cool.
Okay.
Should be out in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Bridges, there's a lot happening. There's existing bridge, which is the Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain bridge. We're adding more features for NFTs and bridging NFTs from one chain to the other. And then we have the Bitcoin bridge is in the works. We finally have about 5 people spending time on it. Timeline is TBD, but rest assured it's top of mind for the bridge work stream. And BTC bridges has a lot of moving parts. It's different from any Ethereum EVM chain bridge, right? So we have to do a lot of things from scratch from the BTC Live Client implementation, purely because it has to be super secure, like any other bridge. But here, there's a full stack that you have to build. So hopefully, we'll be able to share a more concrete timeline in a few weeks from now. And stable coins, where we already have bridge stable coins, but we invite developers to come and build innovative stablecoin models. I think there's some exciting stuff happening. Liquidity is doing a fantastic job with interest-free loans, which give out the Liquidity stablecoin. So if anyone has exciting stablecoin models they want to port over from Ethereum, which are battle tested, please reach out to me.
No, that's exciting. That's really exciting. On that point, where can people reach out to you? Do you have a Twitter presence? Do you want to give us your home phone number? How do you want people to get a hold of you?
Sure, absolutely. So people can definitely get in touch on Twitter or email. I'm Sahil@harmony.one. I think emails, I'm old school, so email I'm pretty fast in responding.
The fact that you just said that your email is old school, yes, it 100%. I love email. That's where I live, but nobody else is using email anymore.
I know. So email is right out there. And then, of course, Twitter, DM me, Sahil Devan, just my first name, last name, and you can find me. Would love to chat.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Any last parting words of wisdom, last things that you want to promote for this Harmony update?
Yes, it's just fresh on our mind, Sam, from this morning. We just started a weekly developer community call. We're opening up, a community of developer captains for Harmony who are going to be the gatekeepers, shepherds, or whatever you call it, champions, evangelists for newer developers to come support, be a bridge between the core team and the developer community. So come join us. You can find more details on our discussion forum, which is talk.harmony.one. And yeah, I think that's the top of mind thing I want everyone to be invited to.
That's very exciting. That's very exciting. Yes, you can find us talk.harmony.one as well as on the Reddit, harmony_dev. So go there, join, ask questions, answer questions, tell us funny jokes. I will remind you all that I do read the comments. So be kind to each other, but engage, have fun. All right, Sahil, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to jump over to this other AMA, and this was fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sam, for doing this. And all the best for AMA with Quid.
Thank you. Hello, my friends, my fellow Harmonauts. I am Sam Harrison, and welcome to the Harmony Garage. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Michael Bramlage. Mike, two things. Number one, did I say your last name correctly?
You got it right.
Number two, I know your name is Michael. Can I refer to you as Mike, or should I stick with Michael?
Either one. I'm flexible. Either one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. My full name is, of course, Samuel Harrison. And when I was a kid, when I was growing up, my friends would call up. They'd be like, "Hey," because this was in the day you had to call to a house, and and people would pick up the phone, and sometimes it was my girlfriend's dad, and I was terrified. So my friends would call up and be like, "Hey, is Sam there?" And I kid you not, my dad would say, "We don't have a Sam that lives here." And so I have always been very cautious about the nicknames and everything. So either way, Mike or Michael. So Michael is, of course, the CEO and founder of Quid. Quid is a digital collectible marketplace. It has over 325 brands to collect. It was started in 2015 and is one of the first businesses that pursue true ownership of digital collectibles. I guess you could call it the OG of digital collectibles. Over 7 million fans and collectors bought their very first digital collective collectible on the platform itself. And we are very excited to have Michael on with us. Now, of course, Quid was initially backed by investors such as Sequoia, such as Dapper Labs. You may know Dapper from CryptoKitties. I mean, they're the guys who opened up the gates on this whole NFT marketplace. But of these 325 brands, we're talking about Marvel, right? We're talking about Rick and Morty, Bob's Burgers, Adventure Time, that tiny company. What was the name of it? Disney, I think, is also on your platform. And this is just, it's terrific. It's very, very awesome. So Michael, do you want to tell me just really kind of off the top, how did you get into the digital collective game?
Yeah, great question. So I had a very traditional technology career through the aughts. I had worked at Microsoft for about 5 or 6 years in Seattle, went to Nokia back when they actually made cell phones, and was part of a team that built their app store. But then in 2012, I was approached by a recruiter for a job that really didn't fit the mold of the career track that I was on. It was for a company called Topps, the old American baseball card company. And being sort of young and naive, my first reaction was they're still in business, because I couldn't believe that in 2012 people still collected pieces of cardboard. But it's an incredible brand.
I still have
it's an incredible brand.
Yeah, I still have my Nolan Ryan Topps All-Star rookie card.
Yeah.
Like it's part of my history. It's part of what I was as a kid.
Exactly. So it's an incredible brand. It's very rare to find, an American male that at some point in their life didn't go through that process of collecting sports trading cards over a couple summers of their lives. It had been just taken private and was owned by and run by a really incredible team of both investors, board members, and management. And they really had a strong appetite to push the envelope to see what somebody who knew digital, what they could do if they applied what they knew to all those assets, right? And so I joined, and threw a lot of crazy ideas at the board. Some were funded, some weren't. And we wound up incubating 2 businesses. One was a direct-to-consumer e-commerce business that obviously made sense for someone who makes products and sells product to consumers to have that direct relationship. But the more interesting business that we had the good fortune of starting was basically a portfolio of applications where sports fans and collectors could collect digital trading cards. Basically download an app on iOS or Android, create an account, have a wallet, and start collecting limited edition pictures of your favorite athletes. We had no idea it was going to work. This really was probably the first instance anywhere on the planet that somebody took pure digital collecting out of the context of a game, right? There's obviously, EA has FIFA, EA has Madden. They've got these ultimate team modes where they're able to monetize the audience that's there for the simulation game with digital collecting. This really was the first time in 2012, 2013 that someone had said, maybe all you need is the collecting. Maybe you don't need a game or an economy in which this exists to give it context and give it value. Maybe value can be created simply because fans love the IP, because they're limited edition, and because it's super fun to do, right? You can open packs in bed at 2 a.m. before you go to bed, and you can't really get that experience with something made of cardboard or wax. So we had a fair amount of success from about 2012 through 2015, where the business scaled incredibly nicely. And I became convicted that we were on the edge of an eventual format shift. And much like, let's say, media that's consumed, or stores of value like, let's say, paper money or stock certificates, that those would eventually be digitized. And you would have a whole generation of young people that would prefer to own something in code as opposed to in cardboard. So that bit of success we had at Topps really sort of emboldened me to say, look, this is going to happen. People will start doing this in the future. And as a result, I had paired up with an amazing co-founder. We co-founded Quid in 2015, 2016. A slight clarification to your intro, Sequoia Capital, they led our Series A, but Dapper Labs, actually Dapper Labs didn't exist when we were
that's a good
around.
point.
So they
yes.
So like historically speaking, it would have been impossible unless they had a DeLorean for them to have invested in us. But it was quite interesting though. Sequoia led our Series A in the fall of 2017, and I think the CryptoKitties phenomenon hit the scene probably 2 months after we closed that round. So we all felt like, hey, we're kind of onto something, right? You've got other companies that we respect incredibly that are exploring true digital ownership. They're just coming at it from a blockchain-based vector, whereas our vector has always largely been, look, regardless of technology, humans do this. It's universal, and the experience of doing it in a native digital environment actually is better than pieces of paper, right? That was our vector into it, right?
Yeah.
The next sort of evolution of our story is in 2019, 2020, we were acquired by Animoca Brands, who at the time was really remaking their business around blockchain gaming and NFTs. And I think now they seem, I'm probably going to mispronounce this big word, but prescient, in the sense that they made a number of these bets, right, that came well before there was any inkling that this NFT space would boom in the way that it has. And we were one of the bets that they made. And it effectively was, look, Quid has these brands. They've got this collecting know-how. What if we sort of turned the crank on the business, polished up some areas, and then connected it to the blockchain? Could this be an incredibly potent combination to take digital collecting to the next level? And I like to think that they were right. I like to think that we were right. So that's the long and gory saga of myself and of Quid.
Now, so my apologies about mistaking the Dapper Labs. Did they end up either investing in Quid or maybe it was Animoca?
That's a great question. So the relationship what we share is really through Animoca. Animoca invested in, I want to believe, Flow and in Dapper, and then Animoca acquired us. So you can think of it this way: we have a parent company that we're investors and are investors in Dapper Labs and in Flow. But obviously, one of the wonderful things about Animoca Brands is they've been very prolific in this space, right? Yeah. And so I'm certain we'll talk about it. But again, our vector isn't blockchain technology is incredible. What can we do with it? Our vector is, I think human beings want to do this, right? And then what is the best technology to enable it? So one of the things I'd like to get in with you, Sam, is this notion of chains, right? And which chain should this stuff reside on, and why even put it on a chain? The one thing I'll say about us up front to your community is we are fiercely chain agnostic as a starting point, right? And in a lot of
Oh, no. So I apologize to the audience because we just had one of those classic modern problems where the Zoom froze. Michael was in the middle of his fantastic explanation and discussion about being cross-chain and how important it is to be cross-chain agnostic, especially going into the future. So, Michael, you don't have to repeat everything you said, but I would like you to tell the audience, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is what our philosophy is when it comes to cross-chain.
Yeah, I like to think my answer was so great that it broke the internet as we went through this.
The gods of the internet said, no, you will not talk this level of truth. And so they will freeze you completely out.
Exactly. No, so just to quickly summarize, it's in large part because our sort of vector into the space is more from the human psychology of it and the customer experience of it, and this sort of conviction that this is just going to happen, right? Somebody will convert this industry to a fully digital experience. Our view of chains is it's not a tribal one, it's not a religious one, it's a technical one. There's no doubt about that, but we largely view it as it is like swapping out our database and swapping in both the decentralized database of somebody's chain plus its community plus its ecosystem, right? And in that world, we like to think, well, who are we ultimately to make that final decision, right? In large part, it should be the person that owns that digital collectible that at a minimum has a hand in determining to which chain it's going to go and where it might reside and what permanence actually means. So in large part, I think, get strength from being sort of agnostic. And I think it also opens up the opportunity to work with, amazing communities and amazing technical solutions like Harmony, right? So obviously very, very pleased to be here and discuss that with you.
Yeah. To reiterate, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a multi-chain world, obviously. Every chain is going to have a little bit of specialty. We saw how Bitcoin and Ethereum split the market a little bit about who their audience was and what they did well. Now,
exactly.
At the end of the day, you're going to have people collecting items is a personal experience, right?
Yep.
And so these people are going to be able to want to find the things that they're interested in and view them and experience them however they particularly want to, which means we have to have a diversity of chains. We have to have this ability to go from chain to chain with your assets. I do have a firm belief in my religion of Harmony and all of the various different things that I think Harmony does super, super well. But I do not think that it is the one central place of truth for blockchain endeavors.
I would add to that. I would add to that too. I think it's the community that we have on Quid. These are true fans. These are physical collectors that have started to make the shift to digital. I'd say 10% or less of them are familiar really with the inner workings of various chains, which I think presents a huge opportunity for Quid to be kind of the front door for mainstream adoption. But it also creates a bit of a burden for us because our community in large part would say like the blockchain. Like, is there really the blockchain? I mean, there really isn't. It's multiple chains and each one has its unique attributes. So I think in a lot of ways, we can play the role of being kind of that Sherpa to help guide them through some of these decisions. Because again, it is a personal one. What we like to offer the space is a community of collectors who really value these digital objects. Many of them will want to seek a chain where they get confidence that they can own it for 10 years, for 100 years, right? And so we just don't want to get that wrong. And that's in large part why I think we haven't been the first into this space, but I want to think that when we do it, as it relates to mass adoption, we'll be the best.
So that actually leads in pretty well to kind of the purpose of this call. Our team over at Reddit and our community at Reddit sent out a call for questions to be asked of you and of Quid. And one of the first ones is this one from the user Sleeping Lab. Sleeping Lad, LAD, not LAB. Maybe I just want to go to a sleep lab because I'm tired and I want to take a rest. But he says, hi, Harmony and Quid. As a complete crypto noob, but a Quid veteran, how easy will it be for players who don't understand the crypto world to start fresh? So that's question one on this. His second question is, if I own a Quid item that eventually moves to the Harmony chain, will it still appear in my Quid account? I love the idea of starting my crypto journey by selling awesome items via Quid. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I think I know this collector. He's been very supportive on Twitter. But it feels like this is like a plant that we put in the audience. I guess no. Thanks for the question, obviously, and thanks for any support that we can get from an OG collector. I will first try to remember those three questions and then try to systematically answer them for you. So I think that the first is like around the education piece, right? Okay, so this is a good one, right? Because I don't think anyone's fully solved this yet, right? You do have things like Top Shot that abstract away a lot of the complexity of the blockchain and ultimately even remove the word blockchain entirely from their marketing materials, right? So you're starting to have everybody sort of wind up in a place where you kind of want to remove it from the application layer and make its interaction almost abstracted away. But that still doesn't answer the question of, well, how do you educate customers on what's happening, particularly when asset prices rise on these things and the emotional connection grows and you've had it for years? Like, you're going to want to educate them on what this, where it's stored and what it means. So our not so secret weapon on that really is to use metaphors. Coming from the world of physical collecting, there are things you do with owned collectibles that mean a lot to you. You get them authenticated, you get them graded, you get them insured. In some cases, beyond slabbing the card itself, you'll actually have it vaulted, and you will store it off premise, right, in a secure, climate controlled environment, right, to preserve its awesomeness. Those are metaphors that collectors know. Those are services and experiences that current collectors know. And I think what we can do is essentially position what it means to mint something on chain in those same terms, right? This is why you'd want to do it, and this is the value add that you get from it. So we will never probably talk in bits and bytes. We might talk about things like transactions per second and scalability. We will certainly talk about things like permanence, but ultimately our approach there is to really wrap everything up in a nice metaphor that feels a lot like how you might engage with the object in the physical world. And it's not dissimilar from the technology industry as a whole, right? Like, when media was first digitized, everything was like skeuomorphic, right? We still call the desktop on your computer a desktop, right? Because it was meant to resemble your desktop with paper files in paper folders on top of it, right? So I think metaphors work incredibly well, and that's really just our not so secret weapon. So that was question 1. Could you remind me of question 2 from Mr. Sleeping Lad?
If they own a quid item,
yes,
and that quid item moves onto the Harmony chain, will the quid item still show up in his quid account?
Yes. There's kind of an inclination to be like, you say no, and therefore the choice of minting is even more of a dramatic one, right? But what we don't want to do is force that on anybody. So we're working hard to ensure that our application layer can effectively subscribe to items that are stored with us and that are also associated with your crypto wallet on a particular chain. So imagine having one universal sort of digital binder that the sort of storage location, its chain is just part of the item that you have, right? But it all can be basically absorbed in your collection, because it is really true though. Like, you can own, let's just put it this way, you can own, and this is not me by any means, but you can be a high-end art collector and it's still your collection and you still own it, but some you've lent out to a museum, some are displayed in your home, and some are in long-term storage. It doesn't mean it's not yours, right? It's still yours. It just happens to reside in different locations. So our objective really here is to remain an application layer that can still basically absorb those things, even if on the back end they don't exist centrally stored with us.
Gotcha.
Third question, Sam, I apologize. What was the third question from?
I'm trying to see if there's a third question in there. He's excited about starting his crypto journey. It seems like it's going to be pretty straightforward to start fresh in the crypto world.
Yep.
And he makes sure that he knows where it is. Now, I love, this concept of being able to have your binder. You and I talked just briefly about the fact, like, I still have my Nolan Ryan Topps All-Star rookie card from when I was collecting cards when I was a kid, but I have I have them all in an old Trapper Keeper with a Lamborghini on the front with a Velcro flap on it. And it's not
with
just
a jet shooting missiles or something. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, welcome to what was it, 1989 or so?
Yeah, exactly.
Trapper Keeper was huge. But I had not just my Topps cards in there. I also had, was it Fleer? I think was a competitor at the time, and some of the more pricier or fancier cards beyond just the standard cardboard ones. But they were all in the same binder. So I knew that if I wanted to go look at my collection, if I wanted to pull them out, and I would play baseball games with them. So I like put the pitcher on the pitcher's mound. And anyway, I knew exactly where to find them all. And I think that idea is one of the ones that you're talking about, which I think is brilliant, because one of the core problems, the core stumbling blocks right now for the blockchain industry across the board is the on-ramp process is so complicated. It's not the right word, because it's not complicated. It's just, there's a lot of friction. We're working on solving that at Harmony with our One Wallet. And so having, solutions like you and partners like you would also be helpful. Do you mind if I jump into Go ahead.
Not at all, but just to piggyback on that question, or sorry, that statement, I completely agree. It's a combination though, and I want to stress some I don't know, discipline or some caution here with this. I think largely post CryptoKitties, the argument was there are millions of people beating down the door that want to own one of these things. They just can't get through this incredibly difficult onboarding process. And so the only solve here is let's make things technically more efficient. I think that's a convenient answer, to be honest. It's a mix of pain and pleasure, right? We have to minimize the pain to get in, but we also have to maximize the pleasure once you do actually get in, right? So you got to have just a killer experience. It's something that people want to engage in, where they're willing to crawl through a desert, laden with broken glass. But for us, I think really what we're working on and what we're about to, I think, fully realize is, I believe we can be the first company that can get an NFT in the hands of a fan or collector in 60 seconds or less, without that person having a crypto wallet, without that person having cryptocurrency, without that person potentially even having a credit card. So you could argue, hey, well, it's not really an NFT at that point, like, and that's fine. But if it can be minted into an NFT at a later date, really, what's the difference? So again, I think mass adoption obviously has to reduce friction and has to maximize the pleasure once that friction's overcome. But again, I think our vector into this, having originated in being off-chain, is a big advantage for us, and what makes, I think, this partnership also even more exciting.
Excellent point about the partnership. The next question from our AMA is from the user Ergo Neuro. What sticks out to you about the Harmony project when reflecting who to adopt partnerships with in such a broad and vast blockchain space? He gave a little bit of color to this. He would find it insightful if you care to elaborate on your own sentiment about Harmony and how it complements with what you're doing over at Quid.
So my better half in the Quid engineering team, he can speak to what I would consider like the technical bake-off, right? I could talk a lot about like sharding and transactions per second and gas fees and all that. That's really for my better half to speak to you guys about in a later sort of a later engagement. For me, it's a lot about the community. In fact, I want to steal away as many community managers that exist on Harmony and bring them into Quid, because that's been my first impression and my best impression of Harmony is the fervent community that has supported the chain from its earliest days and that want to see it succeed, and that I think to us represent a community of native crypto people that are very eager to receive these NFTs. Right. So it really is the fervor of the community that gets me most excited. And it also basically gives me a much higher probability of success with the partnership overall, right? Like we are very confident that when we bring NFTs, more than just the Atari drops that we did a couple of weeks ago, that when we bring even more to the Harmony community, that they'll be well received.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things I love about Harmony too, the community, because it is so much about community and about engaging in an open project that you enjoy the people you're working with. I think it's terrific.
Yep.
And it actually brings up another really interesting point, because you just mentioned the fact that we did those Atari NFTs just a few weeks ago. Zelzan, one of these days I'm going to get really better at pronouncing Reddit usernames or Twitter usernames.
Right.
But that day is not today. He or she said, hey, I bought the awesome Atari Centipede NFT a few weeks ago via Harmony. Are there any plans for this and other Quid NFTs to be made tradable on platforms like DaVinci?
This probably isn't the answer that Zelzan wants to hear. At a high level, absolutely yes. At a low level, the reason why that hasn't happened yet really is just everyone's been incredibly busy.
Yeah. So
it's in the works, and I quite literally have like a Slack response that I have to provide that would enable that in short order. And so it's that hasn't happened yet, I think, is not a result of strategy or whatever. It's really just about the timing to get that set up. And I think I can give the promise that will happen and hopefully happen soon, because it obviously increases the value to the owner of that Atari cartridge, right? And this is where things like interoperability, things like choosing a chain beyond just its community, but also its applications, right? Where you're essentially infusing that object with more and more utility. We would be swimming upstream and doing things actually negligent to our business if we weren't ruthlessly fighting to make that happen. So that it hasn't happened yet really is just a matter of Slack logistics and not anything more devious.
More devious than that. Yeah. No, I'm excited. Like I've been following that development, and I know it's coming. So I'm excited that. And I'm not going to hold you to you said it would be delivered by X day. I think it's great the fact that we're moving to this. And this is one of the things that's really interesting in the crypto space and in the NFT space is the speed at which some of this stuff happens and gets done. That's amazing. But the follow-up question from this great user is, when can we expect more Quid NFTs on Harmony? They're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, if you'll have us, I think by end of June of this year. So we've got a I don't like overusing this word, a drop, right? We've got some inventory. Okay, who doesn't have drop fatigue at this point, right? Like you sign up for all these services and it's just this drop. It's just impossible to. I've got total drop fatigue, but we do have some inventory carved out that I think will be unique, will be special. I think will be a really, really good fit for Harmony and a way to even push DaVinci forward. And again, maybe this is just one of these things that's clogged in Slack, but we've got something circled for the end of June, and we'd be thrilled by the opportunity to do a second drop with Harmony.
You can call it a drop. It doesn't need to be with quotes. I do acknowledge that we are, we drop albums and we airdrop tokens and everything's a drop. But honestly, at the end of the day, you are providing a great product that literally will drop in the laps of the community. And so I think it's terrific. So let me kind of step up a little bit and say, okay, we're talking about the crypto space. We're talking about NFTs. Let's jump to another question from actually one of our moderators, Rock the Blockchain, who is fantastic and does a lot of work on behalf of Harmony. He asks whether or not, thinking about product market fit, thinking about the NFT marketplace, do you think that Quid has any unique ways or any unique visions to use the brands that you have access to in the NFT space in a way that was not previously available? Is there kind of a evolutionary or a revolutionary or a visionary move to take your 325 brands of some great IP and really push the NFT space?
That's a fantastic question. We ultimately, though, are not very good at hype. We're not, we're more realists than anything. We love the promise of NFTs in terms of things like interoperability, but at the same time too, like, let's be honest, like, maybe you can surface the ownership record of the token in various applications or in explorers and stuff, but can you really like play the item and have it come to life in your metaverse? It's a fantastic promise, right? But like, the industry as a whole needs to work a lot harder on making that happen, as opposed to just saying it might happen in the future, right? So I'm very cautious about saying like, hey, you know what? You mint your Quid item on chain and all of a sudden you can display it in this metaverse. Theoretically, is that possible? Yes. But should the industry work a hell of a lot harder to make that a reality and not a promise? Absolutely. So I don't want to get out over my skis on promising that. I think the one thing that you might see in short order with some drops coming up is the medium itself, right? So independent of this interoperability notion and like, hey, I can take it everywhere I want to go, which again, we got to make faster progress on to get there to really deliver. Right. What we can control more of is the object itself, right? And I think it is a fair criticism of the NFT space to say like, this is just a PNG, right? Or like this is just a GIF or just a video clip, right? That is a fair criticism by a lot of individuals, right? And we've taken that criticism to heart and are starting to do more with the medium itself, right? You've ultimately got a container that will run software, and that itself is the experience of the collectible. There's a whole hell of a lot you can do with that you can't do with cardboard, you can't do with plastic, right? So whether it's like generative types of things where it's an evolving, living piece of digital art, right? Like I'll steal an example from someone I admire, but like it's connected via an API to the weather, and as the weather changes, the actual object will change in real time, right?
Yeah.
So that's, you can't do it with cardboard, you can't do it with plastic, right?
Right.
We're not quite there yet. There are a couple steps before that we want to take. But yeah, I think one that you'll see from us in short order that actually we kind of hinted at with the Atari cartridges is 3D, I don't think should be experienced in a video clip. I think if you own the 3D object, you better be able to interact with it, right? You better be able to pinch and to zoom it and to move it and inspect it and rotate it and actually get as much of a physical feel on it as you possibly can get. So I think you'll see us not getting to the crazy visionary things anytime soon, because we don't want to overpromise. I think you really see us pushing the boundary and say, look, let's make this far more than a GIF. Let's make this far more than a PNG. Let's make this far more than a piece of cardboard. Let's actually fully flex the fact that this thing is code and start to push the boundary on what this thing can be. It's interesting. I mean, a lot of what a collectible is going to be challenged.
Yeah.
Right. A physical trading card is a physical trading card largely because of constraints around printing on cardboard.
Yeah.
Right. That no longer exists when you're dealing with code. So long story short, we want to do all the visionary things. Those are all on the roadmap. We don't want to promise them yet. What we would rather do is talk more incrementally about simply making the object you own far more interactive and far cooler than it is today.
No, I love the answer. I love the fact that you start off by saying, hey, let's be careful about hype, because that's one of the big issues that we have across the blockchain space, is that people will be 100% engaged, enthralled, ensorcelled by the hype that comes out around a project or an item. And a lot of that hype, doesn't come to fruition, and it leaves people holding the bags. So having a caution about, yes, we know that this technology has potential, but there are miles to go before we sleep on this particular space, I think is the correct attitude to have. But then also being able to say, but we have ideas. Like there are things that we want to do, but let's be careful. We do have ideas.
Yeah.
We want to have that Iron Man experience about interacting with the digital glove from Iron Man 1.
Well, but let me just be, it's like play a modern day video game and compare that to a board game, right? Yeah. And that's the type of leap that we'll eventually experience. And so the digital trading cards that we deal with today that largely exist in the industry, they're still like oppressively locked into the skeuomorphism of their physical real world counterpart. And I think maybe before the interoperability promise, there's a leap beyond that, where what that object can be really gets unmoored from its physical constraints. And probably a great example of that is Top Shot and what Dapper Labs did, right? To bring video footage and layered on a collectible. Again, that's a huge departure from what you can do in the physical world.
Oh, sure.
But again, I would say basically like the object itself has to evolve dramatically. And probably the comparison is like, a board game to a game on Xbox.
I love that comparison.
Immersive and different it can be.
Yeah, I love that comparison, because there is a massive leap between playing something like Monopoly, and then playing something like Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, and this was always the thing, because you had a lot of skeptics that were like, why would you do this? Like, who wants to pay money to own a gift? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And then I would also, in my head, I'm just thinking, well, it's equally irrational to want to own this piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
Right. 100%. And what made me feel good about it and sort of bet my livelihood on that notion is just knowing that from a cool factor.
Yeah.
Simply like the medium of code is so limitless relative to things made of physical material.
Yeah. So that kind of covers a bunch of the questions that we've had from the audience. There's obviously more, like if you log into Reddit onto the Harmony subreddit, you'll find other questions, and obviously on Twitter and the other platforms, Telegram, Discord, you'll find people who are very excited to engage. So Michael,
Yep.
if you have the opportunity, feel free to jump in. But just like everyone right now at Harmony, I'm sure you are absolutely swamped. So I very much appreciate all the time that you've been able to share with us. Let me ask though, before we go, is there anything else about Quid or in your personal life that you want to talk about, or personal life that you want to talk about? I'm not your therapist. I'm not going to try to give you.
Well, I had this weird dream the other night. Could you help me decode it?
Thankfully, you went the direction of I have this weird dream, because you were putting your thumb towards your back and saying weird, and I was just praying you weren't going to say anything about a mole.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, anything that you want to pump, anything that you want to talk about, anything that you want to bring to the community's attention.
Okay, so we are notoriously awful at this. I'm not like on a talk show and I brought a book that is going to hit the bookstores and I'm going to hold it up. Like we're really, really bad at that. What I'll just generally say is we're going to be the kind of NFT company, I think, that's going to earn your trust. It's going to do things incrementally, bit by bit. We're not going to get out ahead of our skis and promise things we can't deliver on. I think if there's anything that I would plug is just go check out market.onquid.com. Right, that's kind of it's a web application that's still in beta, but it gives you a sliver of our cash-based aftermarket. If you really want to see how digital collectibles are trading for real money in an off-chain environment, and get a sense of what the potential could be if you took that activity and moved it on-chain onto Harmony, that's the best lens through which to almost view the potential before it's actually happened, right? Additionally, we obviously, I think what makes us stand out is we've been building these native mobile apps on iOS and Android, where very few companies have a native mobile app, so you can get that collecting experience of NFTs in your pocket. We have that, so check that out. QUIDD. One last plug that I think distinguishes us is you had mentioned Atari. This thing just happened today that was so cool. We just sold I think a 1 of 1 or like a 1 of 3 digital trading card from the Atari license, featuring the one of the lead programmers and designers on Centipede. Her name is Donna Bailey. She worked at Atari in the late 70s and early 80s, and it's literally like her rookie card. And it sold for $2,000 on Quid in the last 12 hours, which makes that item more valuable in terms of recent transactions than even like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant digital trading cards that are also available on Quid. And so it's a weird environment, but it's like we've got a rookie card from an iconic video game legend who built a game that's 40 years old. That item is outselling, current and retired legendary NBA stars. It's that's just amazing. It's a unique quirk.
Yeah.
Right. But that's kind of the other thing too that I want to say is this medium opens up the opportunity to explore different fandoms and different IP that would never find their way onto the store shelves of Target or Walmart because of supply chain and distribution constraints. Because it's digital, you can move fast. And I think what you can do is you can actually find niche communities that love random stuff. And I love the fact too that based on sales like that, we can say, hey, why as a society aren't we putting the video game programmers, right, on a pedestal in the same way we put athletes on a pedestal? So not to make any grand cultural, observations here, but check us out on the web, check us out in our apps, and I think you'll find a really interesting cash-based buy sell aftermarket of these digital collectibles where interesting quirks like that jump out, where Donna Bailey can best Kobe Bryant, and it's just fun to look at. So check it out.
Well, first off, are you setting up a nice one-on-one between Donna and Kobe? Is that your?
I wish. R.I.P. Maybe LeBron. Mamba's no longer with us, but but it is one more thing to plug in. I know we're running short on time. I talked about how in this format, working with code versus working with paper or plastic, you can do things that haven't been imagined yet, right? We're utterly eager to explore that. The thing that Atari and Donna Bailey exposes relative to the officially licensed NBA trading cards on Quid is maybe the real world doesn't have it right? Maybe, you know, what you see on the store shelves or what's even the physical product on Amazon, maybe they don't quite have that right? Maybe there are large audiences of fans who love a certain IP, but it somehow didn't get through the right gatekeeper to go to the printing press to wind up, you know, taking the bet for the shelf space at a store. Right. And so removing that, having that gatekeeper not exist, I think ultimately creates a very blank canvas for like what is a fandom and what IP should be collectible. Like we all love Star Wars, but maybe there's other things out there that are smaller that in aggregate are actually bigger than that, right? And because it's digital, you can tap
Dune.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm a huge Frank Herbert fan.
No. Well, the reality is it's probably like Mr. Beast, to be honest. But in any event, I think that's the other cool piece too, and that's what makes me long term so bullish on this space. We are already beyond will real people pay real money to own these things? We've proven that, and that's incredibly exciting. And we're ending the period where digital collectibles just kind of like map to the physical world. We're now in the next era where we're going to be reimagining that physical world, leaving it in its dust because of all these advantages we have with the digital format.
I think that's brilliant. I think that is excellent. I have enjoyed our conversation. Like, this has been really good. We've had some good back and forth. I think that you have a lot of really smart ideas about where this is going, and also the right perspective, which is saying, hey, this is all, it needs to be built. It isn't built yet, but there is potential there. There is gold in them dar hills, but we got to dig it out. We have to put the hard work in to make it happen. So I like that. And I love the analogy. I absolutely love the analogy between board games and video games, because that is so apt for what's happening right now with the NFT space. And, you know, like we say over here at Harmony, we're really at day one. We are really at the very beginning stages of this whole thing. Michael, again, thank you so much for your time. The Reddit community is thrilled to be able to ask you questions and get some really good answers. We love what you're doing on Quid. I'm very excited for the next drop of the Atari things. Oh, and I think I shared the photo with you. I found a piece of artwork at a local hotel that had nothing but Atari cartridges up on the wall. It was super cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was very fun.
Now, imagine that 30 years from now, where what's on display are these digital Atari cartridges, right?
Yes.
And they're spinning and moving, and that becomes the vintage collectible from 30 years ago. So
yeah, I love it.
That's the next step.
That's the next step. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again to Michael. Thank you to Quid and the team over there at Reddit to help pull this together. My name is Sam Harrison, head of ecosystem growth for Harmony, and thank you for visiting the garage. Michael, do you want any final words to sign off?
Just a sincere thank you to you, Sam, and to the Harmony community. The community is one of, if not the best I've seen as we've gone sort of chain to chain, and we are more than thrilled to be working with you now and for years to come. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.